Good morning, traders. Today is Monday, November 14th. My name is Charles, and this is the Pirate Traders live stream where we talk about the ES and the NQ and the two-way auction process. All right, well, let's start the day today. Before we talk about where we're going, let's talk about where we've been. So over the last few weeks, the market's been starting to kind of build some support here. We had some momentum in the market last week. We had 3 days in a row where value was overlapping to higher. The market also made higher highs and higher lows. So that was a sign of excess. That was a sign of momentum to the upside. Then we had a pullback to balance off that excess. And then what happened was a change in the market. What happened was the CPI news came out. It changed people's perspective on what they were predicting the future would hold. That change in the market brought on new momentum to the upside. So we had momentum, we balanced it off, then we started new momentum, new excess to the upside. Well, since the moment that we created that change in the market, we have been building momentum on top of weakness. Okay, so that's just the first point I wanted to kind of show you, was this momentum that the market is experiencing right now. It started on top of all this weakness. Okay, so then let's pull up and let's take a look at what happened on Friday. So Friday, we had a continuation of that momentum. Okay, the market opened, it pushed higher, and it closed almost up in a spike. It closed up near the high of the day. So that is a sign that we still have momentum in the market to the upside. But then what did the overnight do? Well, the overnight created a perfect little bell-shaped curve, just showing nothing but balance, nothing but rotation sideways inside a range where we left behind a bunch of weakness from yesterday. So what does that mean for this week and for today? Well, we could keep going with the momentum. Right? This excess that we now have, this new change in the market, it could just keep on going today and the market could continue to pump higher. But the shape of the profile from the overnight and the fact that we've left so much weakness behind increases the odds in my mind that that excess to the upside might be over. And if the excess to the upside is over, we're looking for balance. We're looking for a way to balance off that momentum. So one way is we may just go sideways up at higher prices, maybe even spending a few days balancing around up in here. An alternative option would be the market pulls back with price, heading down to repair the weakness and backfill the unfilled gaps. Okay? So those are the three options. It could keep going higher, it could start going sideways, or it could start a larger pullback. Happy Monday. But the good news is we have signals along the way to help us understand which of those three scenarios might be playing out. So the signal for momentum to the upside is breaking the overnight high and getting continuation higher. Right? If we can get to the overnight high, find new buyers, we look to test Friday's high. Find new buyers, we look for continuation higher. That is the bullish scenario where we get continuation of the momentum. The sideways scenario, the overnight low fails. So we try to push down and test that overnight low. We do not find support there. The market continues lower. Okay, that sets us up for balance. So then the question becomes, does the market want to balance sideways, or does it want to pull back further down? So the next thing is, if we get below the overnight low and we find resistance there, we're looking to see what happens at yesterday's low, at Friday's low. Do we just kind of poke below, find some support, and then pull back up? Great. We've probably got balance to the side for a couple of days. Or do we get below yesterday's low, get below Friday's low, and find new sellers there? Resistance for continuation to the downside? This would be extremely bearish to me, as it could mean that we need to pull back and balance off some of this excess, right? We could need to pull all the way back down to fill this gap. So I'm essentially first focusing on the overnight high and the overnight low. If we can break one of those, I look for continuation to yesterday's high or yesterday's low, Friday's high or Friday's low. And then if those break, I look for continuation, one way or another. If they, find support or resistance, so if we poke below yesterday's low and come back in, or poke above and come back down, then just sideways. Okay? And the market is open. Being that we're opening inside of yesterday's range and inside of an overnight range that was so choppy, I, of course, am expecting more chop this morning. I'm expecting the market to continue to grind up and down, but keep an eye on those levels I just mentioned as important support resistance to give us a clue of what the market is trying to do. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in a chop zone and we're chopping it up. For some reason, YouTube is telling me there's only 6 people watching right now. That can't be right. Okay, so we're pushing up into some resistance right here. It is worth noting, it's both the overnight high and the overnight low, but that from the overnight high, that's a 45-degree angle. So that often acts as extremely strong resistance. Generally, if a market is going to break an overnight high that has a 45-degree angle coming down off of it, it requires a lot of grind and chop to fight its way through. Still says 6 viewers, but 74 likes. The 6 of you are really working for those likes. Appreciate you. Okay, so whenever we're in a chop zone like this, one indication to which direction it might break is if it can find support or resistance at the halfback and then head in that direction. So if the market can find support here, it can head back up for another poke of the high. But if we pass right back through it, it just means more chop. Okay, so that resistance is holding. You'll notice the market is finding resistance in exactly the same place where it did in the overnight. We've run out of momentum. We can see the volume tapering off, right where it tapered off in the overnight. That is a sign that this is strong resistance in here. And so the chop continues. So I'm keeping an eye on this node right here. That's currently at 39.89 as resistance. Can that hold? If they can hold that resistance there and keep the ticks below the zero line, the sellers can start to take charge. Resistance question mark? It is a chop zone. Mark says huge zero gamma around 39.31-ish. What does that mean? Interpret that for us. What to expect? The gamma flip where dealers need to readjust. No, yeah, no, I know that. I mean, but is the market going to go up or down? When moon, bro. When moon. All right, so let's see. Does this resistance hold? Whatever they want. So we just got to wait and see. Invictus? Really? If that's real, shit's going to get interesting today. All right, well, they got through that resistance, so that means more chop. They're just still going to chop it up. Yeah, if that's real, it's about to have ripple effects. There's going to be some panic in Europe today. Greg says they were going to block it on the 5th anyway. So Europe is set up for the winter. Well, we'll find out. If it's true, we'll find out if it's priced in. All right, so we began the endless game in the chop zone of watching that halfback to see, can it become support or resistance? Now that we're back below, does it become resistance? If so, they can take another poke at the lows. As we just chop it up. right. Well, thank you for the 100 likes. We're still in a chop zone here, but we're getting a potential setup for a break lower. They've been holding the ticks below the zero line, which means the buyers have not been able to get any momentum here. If they were going to continue that momentum to the upside on the daily, they should be able to find buyers here this morning. So that's the first sign that the market wants to break lower. So the next signal will be once we test this overnight low, so once we poke below here, what happens then? Do we immediately find support and bounce right back up? Or do we get resistance, new sellers to go lower? The bounce is more chop. The resistance is bearish to test yesterday's low, Friday's low. So let's see what we get. A period low is now weak. Okay, so there's the break of yesterday's low, a repair of the week reference. So if new sellers start to pile on here, if we get resistance on a retest of 39.77, then we're looking for a continuation to the downside. All right, I guess the chop continues. Testing the halfback for resistance once again. Now they're beginning to turn resistance into support. So we got the tug of war basically happening between the opening price and the halfback. All right, resistance breaks. The chop continues. So now we're back to playing the same game again. Can they now turn halfback into support to take a poke at the high? Seven. Even you couldn't make a seventh. Couldn't make it happen. All right, the bears are trying to grab hold of the market here. They are desperately trying to slap down those bulls. Which way is it gonna break? Remember, this is important. This tug of war that's happening right now, this battle that's being fought is very, very important. If they're going to get continuation of the momentum on the daily higher, they could really pump the market today. And if they, aren't going sideways, if they need to pull back with price, they could really dump the market today. So there's a lot of potential, who knows? It might go nowhere, but there's potential for a big move here today. So they're just fighting that battle right now, trying to decide who's going to win. The battle lines are being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. You're a trader now. Get in with little risk. Greg H., do you expect a break versus a range day? I genuinely cannot tell you. To me, coming into the market this morning, it's like 30% break higher, 30% sideways, 30% lower. I can see all three scenarios playing out. Obviously, I can have more context once we get some more information. Scooball says, in the market, it's possible for everyone to be wrong, but impossible for everyone to be right. That's very true. It always seems like when everyone's convinced of something, the opposite has to happen. All right, buyers taking charge. So now that we are looking to test the overnight high up at 4,004, basically. As the market chops around, chewing up and chewing down, taking stops right out. I bet you, yep, both sides of the market. 80 stops on one side, 150 on the other, 130 on one side, 160 on the other, 420 on one side, and now they're heading back up to the other. Michael says, seems like there's a lot of optimistic sentiment still in the market in spite of all the really bad stuff on the real world's horizon. This is why I laugh at the efficient market theory. I don't know that I agree with that. The recent surveys have shown people are more pessimistic now than they have been in. They're more pessimistic now than they were in like 2008. Like, I don't think there's as much optimism out there as you think there is. Okay, so we just repaired the poor high. We've now pulled the value area to overlapping to higher from yesterday. That's a little tiny bit bullish to see. And we did get the initial balance now going to the upside. That's a tiny bit bullish to see. But this is still a chop zone. No one's in charge just yet. Can the bulls hold the zero line on the ticks? Another signal. We're pushing our way up into the 20 moving average on the 15-minute candles for the ES here. And oftentimes there's a set of algorithms that kick in right when the market tests that level. And it essentially acts as support or resistance depending on which way the market is pushing up. So if the market's pushing into it from beneath, it acts as resistance. Or if it's coming down from above, it acts as support. So just looking for one more signal that the market has some momentum. If they're able to hold those ticks above the zero line and they're able to push through that 20 moving average, it should mean they've got some momentum to the upside. As we keep on chopping it up. Scooball said he suspects that there are stops above the poor high. Well, there was 162 of them waiting to get filled. And of course, as soon as they broke that A period high, a bunch of scalpers jumped in. So the market popped back down to grab their stops too. Okay, so we're starting to push our way through that 20 moving average. That is slightly bullish to see. They are holding those ticks. That is slightly bullish to see. So they should have the momentum to test that overnight high. Uh, 4,350. Scooball, do I use time stops? I would only use them as a swing trader. I would never use them as a day trader. So I know what you're thinking. You're saying to yourself, Charles, geez Louise, man, we're having such a hard time just testing that overnight high. Surely if we get up there, we're just going to poke above and fail like we did with the overnight low, right? Surely we're just going to poke up and then come crashing and burning down if we barely can even get up there. But here's the thing to keep in mind whenever you're at an important level like that, is that breaking that level can change people's minds, right? So people who are currently shorting the market, looking for a pullback, they might be convinced otherwise once you get above that overnight high. So even if it feels very weak pushing up into this level, if once we poke above there, suddenly momentum starts to pick up, the tempo, the ticks, the volume starts to come in, you know that's new business. And they can start that momentum to the upside. And then the same thing can happen again at Friday's high, where if they can get above it, they can convince new people to go long. So I will admit the trip up to the overnight high right here feels like we're going to fail and just get more chop. But I'm reminding myself, they can always bring in new buyers up there. And I'll watch for that. All right, so the high is now considered weak because it is exactly at the overnight high, increasing the odds. We need to poke at least two more TPOs above there. That's where we'll find out if we have the new buyers. Okay, so right now we're getting short covering. So what we want to see is we want to see the market pull back down into here and see if we can bring in new buyers here. Start to bring in some volume, keep those ticks pumping. Can they hold the overnight high as support? If so, we get bullish to test Friday's high. All right, can they hold it? All right, well, it feels like support here. So I'm looking for those ticks to pop back above the zero. Okay, I'm now bullish to test Friday's high, as we are finding some support at the overnight high. Now, that doesn't mean it won't be a choppy trip up there, but just that we are getting new buyers up here. That's what I was looking for. We pulled down, okay, and then brought in new buyers to push us back up above that zero line. So that to me is bullish to see. I'm looking for us to stay above 39.94. If we can stay above 94, we're looking to test yesterday's high and then monitor for continuation higher from there. I recognize that it is still a chop zone and that I'm a bit early with the call, but that's what it feels like to me. Rafiki, why 94 exactly? Just because that node of support that's directly above it, if they are going to head up and test yesterday's high, this should hold as support right here. So I change my mind if it does not. Market profile. Market profile. You come to the right place, market profile. Why do you look at the tick instead of the tick SP while trading the ES? I suppose I could look at the tick SP. I just kind of always did look at the tick. The person I learned it from was Peter Reznicek, and he just looks at the tick. But to me, the tick is always just a confirmation of what I'm seeing in the futures. It's a way to see are the underlying assets, having the same kind of buying and momentum that the futures are having. So I'm happy to look at the market as a whole. Okay, so now we're going to test my theory. If they want to head up to yesterday's high, we should find support here and pop those ticks back above the zero line. If they crash back through 94, then we know it was just a look above and fail of the overnight range. Same thing that happened down here with a look below and fail. So if the buyers want continuation, this is where they should step in. Whoops. Can they hold it? Nope. All right. Back to a chop zone. Sorry, guys. I really got to learn to stop, to just trade my guesses and not tell you guys about it. So now we're back to the same game we were playing before. Looking for the halfback. Can it become support or resistance? So if they can turn it into support now, they can head back up to take another poke at the high. If they push through, do they turn it into resistance for another poke at the low? They're not through chopping just yet. Screwball look above and below the overnight? Yes, sir. Indecision. Indecision Central. The Bears tried to take the market lower. Couldn't do it. The Bulls tried to take the market higher. Couldn't do it. So more two-sided trade. More tug of war until one of them can finally win. Mark. Still chomping it up in the chop zone. The great washing machine. Yeah, great for laundering money right out of weak hands. All right. Well, as we print the C period here, unfortunately, there's really not much of a clue which way the market's going to break yet. If I had to guess, I would say to the upside. You know, we do have value overlapping to higher, and we are still above the halfback. So if you put a gun to my head and made me choose right now, I would guess it was going to break higher. But honestly, I don't know. So if you want to play it super safe, you could wait for the break of the initial balance, right? You could just put a notification there and a notification there and just let the market grind around in between the two and wait until it either breaks the high or the low. And then you can look for an opportunity in there. Because the same way we did with the overnight high and the overnight low, we thought of it as there being two options, right? We were either going to push below, find resistance for continuation lower, or push below and fail and pull back in. And then same thing on the upside. We can now do that exact same thing with the initial balance, right? Whichever direction the market breaks, either the B period high or the A period low, we can see, does it get resistance there, in which case it's bearish for continuation, or does it just poke below and pull back in, more chop, okay? So this may be a market, unless you're a scalper who likes to take trades in this kind of environment, this may be a market where we got to step back for a few hours and just let the short-term traders wear each other out. They pick each other's pockets long, they pick each other's pockets short until finally one side wins. There's nothing that says we have to play that game. There's no rule that says we have to trade in a chop zone. We can wait for it to break and then look for opportunities. Food for thought. With that, I will bid you farewell. Wish you all the best. I'm heading on over to hang out with the cool kids in the brigade. I highly recommend you join us. Link in the description. Have a great day.